leader in this cause.
Mm-hmm.
And it started me on a path to sort of think about leadership in a different way, and not about performance, but being there for others,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of setting the example and really starting on a path of servant leadership.
This is a podcast called Walk, Talk, Listen. An attempt to connect people and make this world a bit better by sharing opinions and experiences based on the belief that everyone's perspective is true, albeit partial. My name is Maurice Blom, and I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of Walk, Talk, Listen. Good day, everybody. This is another episode of the podcast Walk, Talk, Listen. And as always, I'm delighted with today's guest who will introduce himself. Jamie, please go ahead.
Hi, Maurice. I'm Jamie Bearse. I'm the CEO at Zero Prostate Cancer. We work to help patients and families fight prostate cancer by giving them support and education and opportunities to advocate for increases in prostate cancer research funding, better access to care. And I've been CEO at Zero for the last 10 years. And actually, today, as we record this, Maurice, is my anniversary of being at the organization for 21 years.
Really? Wow.
So, yeah, but at that, now that I'm at this point, I am, by June, I am going to, as my friends say, graduate from Zero and move on to looking at other adventures. And that's going to be starting up an endeavor in which I'll be helping out other nonprofits with amazing missions all around the country on sharing my experience and listening to them on how we can kind of fine tune some of the things that they're doing so we can build better nonprofits. And when we build better nonprofits, that means that we can build fantastic communities capable of really doing anything in terms of making the world a better place in the way that each one of us envisions that.
Wow. That's exciting, Jamie. I would like to understand more exactly what you're, aiming for, but maybe you take us through your journey in terms of, where did you grow up? What did you study? How did you then end up at Zero? I quickly say Zero Hunger because I want to go to Zero Hunger. That's my kind of, drive, as the listeners know. But how did you get to then the work around prostate cancer and then bring us to the next step? And that's this exciting June start. So, where did you grow up? And tell us about
absolutely. That. Yeah, and before I get into that, I want to say thank you again for having me on the show. Now, I heard a rumor that you've done 99 of these now, right?
No, you're absolutely right. This is episode number 100. So we should have had cake, right? Or something.
Something. Well, I got a little water bottle here, so
Me too.
Thank you, and I'm really touched and honored, Maurice, that I get to be on show 100, and congratulations, because doing a podcast is definitely a labor of love, and I'm sure that you have changed many lives throughout the 100 episodes that you now have done, and spreading the word on how to have people think and behave and act differently toward trying to have a sustainable world and just making it a better place. So congrats.
Yeah. No, thanks, Jamie, and again, the listeners. I did not pay Jamie to say this, but I hope so, Jamie. I mean, from my perspective, it's really a lot of fun to do, and I'm really humbled by the fact that so many people want to talk with me and share their story with me and the listeners. So, it has been a great ride so far. Yeah. Hey, so but yeah, tell us.
Yeah, I don't know who would not want to be on your show. But yes, to go back to your question, Maurice, I think your question is, how did I get involved in leadership, or how did I get involved in the cancer space as far as nonprofit? I was thinking about that the other day. Somebody asked me a similar question. I think the leadership roots of it. Well, I was at a retreat with other nonprofit leaders a few months ago. And we were sitting around a campfire, and somebody had asked, "Hey, when we were all kids, who here had their dream job was going to be a nonprofit CEO?" No one raised their hand. I think after a beat, somebody said, "Well, I wanted to be a firefighter," and we all laughed. Because, of course, we always just want to, be that kind of person, a firefighter or a paramedic or doctor or something like that. But nobody ever raised their hand for that, and it got me thinking of like when did I start having tendencies to want to be a leader? And I go back to high school, and I was a sophomore in high school, and they were looking for a captain of the track team that I was on. And I didn't even know what came over me. I was like, I'll do it. And the guy was like, "Well, you're a sophomore, you're a senior, but we'll see." And gave me, sort of a couple-week trial. And I feel like that was the first like burning moment that I had of like, well, I'm gonna show what I can do. So there's that. There's flash forwarding in the college. Almost the same thing kind of happened. I got into writing for the college newspaper, and by my sophomore year in college, they needed an editor for the newspaper, and I threw my hat into the ring for that because I found it interesting and exciting. And it was the same kind of thing of like, oh well, it would be better if it was someone who had a little bit more experience. And so I was like, I'll show you. So early on, in those very early days in college, it was more of I'll show you what I'm capable of, and sort of linking fair or not fair, sort of linking a lot of the performance to leadership.
Jamie, did you have some role models then in your parents who were doing similar things, were being leaders in what they did, or family members or friends, or did it come really from this little voice from within yourself?
I would say a bit of both. A lot of it early on, because we're talking about you're really still developing maturity and a lot of mental capacity when you're talking about teenagers and early 20s and things like that. But I would say some of it came from getting encouraged from teammates or people who I was on staff with at the newspaper, but a lot of it back at that point was internal, and sort of that like internal fire to prove myself and to get it done. Yeah, I know that. I think we had a conversation before a while back about the nature versus nurture of like where leadership comes from, and I think as we get into talking more about this, that it started. I think oftentimes leaders are sort of made because of the situation that they're put in, or they have sort of this fire in them to get it going. But it's the refinement and sort of that galvanizing that goes on with them over time that really shapes them into what a real leader is. But to keep going with answering your question, so putting those two moments aside, around the same time as all this is going on, high school, college level, probably high school, is we didn't celebrate Mother's Day when I was growing up. And we didn't because my grandmother died from colon cancer on Mother's Day. And that devastated my mom.
Yeah.
And she was the oldest of 6 kids. And all of her siblings looked to her as being sort of the new matriarch, or what do we do in this situation? So from that, I got to view all that as sort of a young teenager, and it was really impactful on me at the time.
How many siblings did you have? So to
Me?
understand, yeah.
Yeah, it's just me that I know.
Oh, you? Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah, but my mom is who had 5 siblings. So there's a lot of pushing, pulling on her for support as they went through that. And my grandmother was 49, and to think that now I've even outlived her, because that's a really young age
to
die from colon cancer. And as my mom was spending a lot of time consoling her siblings and trying to settle out the estate and all that, I was spending a lot of time with my other grandmother. But then the year after that, she had died from leukemia. So at a somewhat early age of, early high school age, to be so upfront and close to cancer in that way. And I don't mean to, I'm not positioning myself as someone who, well, what am I saying? That there's a lot of people out there who have held the hand of the most important person in their life as they passed away from cancer. So I'm not saying that my experience is anywhere in the ballpark as that, but it was enough. It was enough for me to see and feel at that time in my life that when the opportunity did come around, I got involved in a few other things along the way, in my career, but I'm talking about where I'm at now and where we're going is, as an opportunity came up, looking back to late 2001, 2002, to be the press secretary of this small Washington, D.C. based nonprofit that is funded by all of these different other organizations. So it's like an association, small, and just geared toward doing one thing, which is form a prostate cancer research fund that Congress controls. And so I applied for the press secretary job, and remembering the experiences that I had and I saw through the deaths of my grandmothers, and thought that this was a chance to stand in that line and help fight cancer. Obviously, 2 women, they don't have prostate cancer. I did have a grandfather who had it, but standing your ground anywhere on the fight against cancer, I thought was a great one. It's a wonder that I was even hired at the beginning, because I still remember to this day sitting in that interview, Maurice and I, and I said, Lance Armstrong, he had prostate cancer, right? And no, that's not the case. He did not. He had testicular cancer. But however, the people who hired me forgave me for that answer. And luckily enough, I got hired. And along the way, over these last couple of decades, I've had some really, really amazing sort of inflection points on growing as a leader over that time. And like I said, at the as a young adult, I sort of connected leadership around more of like performance. And even though I was inspired by my grandmothers to get into the cancer cause. I wasn't fully bought into the cancer cause until almost less than a year into the job. I met the chairman at the time, and he came into the office and shook my hand and thanked me for all the work that I was doing. And Maurice, I knew he was dying, and he didn't have much time left. I don't mean to make this so dark, but sometimes these are the imprints that we have on ourselves that sort of drive us forward. But it was hearing that from him made me more bought in and realize that what I was doing meant something, and it really touched the lives of people who were affected, abandoned families who were affected, people and families who were affected by prostate cancer. And then, sort of flashing forward a little bit, maybe a couple of years later, and I advanced in my career at Zero a bit, and at that time was a VP. And the new chairman, I was on the phone with him about something, and I still remember what he had said, which was, he said something like, "Hey, you're a really smart guy, and maybe you should go back to school and become a lawyer." And this guy was a federal judge for a long time. "Maybe you should go back to school and become a lawyer." And he's like, "But I hope you don't, because guys like me need guys like you in this cause a whole lot." And I remember back, and that was the first time I felt as though that I could be a leader in this cause. And it started me on a path to sort of think about leadership in a different way, and not about performance, but being there for others, and sort of setting the example and really starting on a path of servant leadership. The third story that I'll tell, and we can sort of break this down, of sort of my journey of getting to being the leader I am now, is we have at Zero, we have all these run walks that we do. So we have these walk events that we do. We're going to do 47 of them this year across the country, which is amazing. And they are events from LA to Boston to Minnesota to Miami, and all points in between for people to walk and run at. And a few years back, before the pandemic, I was at this walk in Hartford, and all of these people who come out form teams, and they put together T-shirts around there for their teams. And I got sent a T-shirt from this one team in Hartford after I talked to this woman who I found out that her husband had passed away from prostate cancer about a month before the Hartford race. And so she sent me a T-shirt, and I brought the T-shirt to Hartford. And I remember the day. It was incredibly hot that day. It was the kind of hot where if you're outside, I know you're a big walker, Maurice, it's the kind of hot day that you almost feel the rubber on your sneakers kind of sticking to the pavement a little bit. That kind of day. So I'm helping set up and doing everything that I can to help out the team on setting up for the Hartford Run Walk. And I'm a stinkopotamus by the time 8 a.m. rolls around. My shirt is ready to get changed, my Zero shirt that I'm wearing. So I change into the Team Lovey shirt, which is this team that I'm talking about. And so I started to let, this past November, I started to let some of our Zero champions, and these are our top volunteers who are very engaged in the cause and help us out. I started to let them know about my plans coming up in June. And the same woman reached out and said in an email of, when I got to the stadium that day, when I got to the where we were going to do the walk that day, she says that she was so broken up about the passing away of her husband, which is completely understood.
Mm-hmm.
She had a hard time coming into the stadium and taking part in the event. And so she made a deal with her sons who were with her of that she was just going to go in and get the race t-shirt and just go home. And so that was the plan. But when she came in, she said that she saw me and I was at the zero table. And then I was wearing the Team Lovey t-shirt, which is her t-shirt. And I smiled and waved at her. And in an email that she sent me, she said that she told her sons that she might cry through some of this event, but she might find a home here as being part of this event and a way for her to start to heal. And that really that really touched me. And I think of, it's gratifying to hear that, because what I've done my best to evolve into over the 10 years that I've been CEO at Zero Prostate Cancer, to inspire others that they can be really everyday leaders. And everyday leaders are people who say something or do something that they might not even remember. I mean, I hardly remember waving or smiling at Elise. I know I wore the t-shirt, but it's these everyday things that people can do that become leaders, because we oftentimes some of us sort of think that, well, leadership is sort of like beyond where we're at now, or that we need to go see the Wizard of Oz and get our special piece of paper in order to feel like we can call ourselves the leader, or that it's a calling that's meant for somebody else, or if we call ourselves a leader, then that's somehow arrogant or whatever. But it's really within us all, and it's an easy thing to do, and we can do it in any moment, just by saying or doing something that makes that changes the outlook of just one person. Because Elise did that for me. That judge did that for me, and it was just all I did at this Hartford Run walk for Elise was smile and wave. And if you look at it like that, like, can't we all do that? Because it doesn't take a lot. And and that's a lot of sort of the philosophy or the culture that I try to build into at Zero.
Yeah, no, Jamie. I mean, I thank you for sharing those stories. This hits me big time as well. I mean, my own dad passed away due to prostate cancer, and recently my brother-in-law as well, and that's really fresh. It happened in October. After 20 years, he called himself maybe the world champion on fighting prostate cancer. And then my sister died of cancer, and anyway, no many people. So thank you for sharing that. I do have wanted to mention quickly 3 things on the basis what you said, and the first one is just a quick question. We don't have to go deep into that, but I would like to know, what did you study so that you ultimately came to working for Zero, and then what I understood is you grew into the organization and you ultimately became the CEO. You started in another job. Is that correct? Yeah. And
Yeah.
and while I was listening to you, Jamie, you know what? Because you said there was not from the beginning you had this. There were moments that changed you and the way you looked at your job and the way you became, from a leader or from a manager into a servant leader. And if I look back at my own career, and maybe this, well, I hope that some people will see me as a servant leader. But when I look back, there was a lot of ego involved, and so I was busy with that ego, and growth and position, and yeah, and I hope that changed ultimately. I'm trying to work on that. So I would like to hear, is that something that you're trying to describe, or that happened to you as well?
Sure. Yeah, you're right. I started off as, by the way, you are very much looked as a servant leader, Maurice. There are many times that we've talked that I've come away and felt smarter and healthier just from our conversation. So you are definitely that. My yes, when I started at Zero, I started off as the press secretary and moved into a director of communications and marketing. That ended up being my background. That was what I went to school for, was journalism.
Okay.
But then the CEO at the time, when I was in that position, said, "Hey, well, if you're talking to the media and trying to get them to print articles, it was not that much different than talking to donors to seeing if they'll give to the organization." So you mentioned ego, Maurice. My ego is like, yeah, I could do that. No problem. It's a bit harder. I discovered quickly trying to get a newspaper to write or these days, a website to do a piece. So that was a bit humbling. But yeah, I would say that there was a good part of my career that was driven by ego, and I think that's what I'm mentioning around the a bit of that fire inside of something that of feeling that you have something to prove, and that really started to fade into the background when I started a family, which is more than 10 years ago. So before I even became CEO, I became CEO because the CEO before me, I had moved up to the point that I was, chief operating officer, chief strategy officer of the organization at that point. And I got a phone call from him and said, "Hey, I'm moving on to this great opportunity. Do you want this position? Because, I'll back you for it." And even even then I sort of questioned, should I do this or should I not do this? And to be honest, I did it in part because I thought of my family and being able to provide for them first before what it actually meant to step into this role and the immense responsibilities that come with it. So I had said yes in order to protect my family, because I didn't know what the future would be if they brought somebody else in. So I did, and fortunately enough, within the first couple of years of being the CEO, I really started to see and build this wonderful team throughout the organization. And I think being a parent helped out, but really starting to have that ego go away and look at everybody across the organization in a way that what they were driving to for success, I was so proud of their success and celebrating their wins as if they were mine personally. And that was the time that, ego around the job or the career like that really melted away.
No, we could talk for hours, right, about the work that you did. But I really would like to give you also the opportunity to talk about, the new thing that's coming, that you're working on. In June, you will go to an organization that you built yourself, right? Build a better nonprofit through culture. So
that's right. Yeah.
So I have. Actually, I scribbled something because I looked at your website, and you wrote, if I can still read my own handwriting, having a healthy culture is the most important part of building a transparent nonprofit and great, what did I write here? Great, driven team. A results-driven team and a great results-driven team. So my question to you, Jamie, is what is a healthy culture?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited. First off, I'm excited for June. It's a little scary after 21 years of being in the same.
I can imagine. Yeah,
but it's exciting to move into this because I really would love to try to take some of my experiences and things that I've learned, because there's been many mistakes that I've made and many failures that I've made over those 2 decades, that I think that I can help other nonprofits that are continuing to grow or going through points for them to succeed. And I'm looking forward to it. And it's called Build a Better Nonprofit, buildabetternonprofit.com. And I look forward to personally working with some aspiring and great nonprofits who want to get from good to great, or from startup to momentum builders. And to answer your question, what makes a healthy organization? It starts with the leader who goes about making a really intellectually cohesive team that communicates clarity, but it doesn't end there. The leader has to live every moment and teach the team to do this too, to have everybody throughout the organization or the team to feel inspired. And that means inspiring them to do what inspires them. Not inspiring them to do something that they don't want to do, or that's in their sort of in their frustration zone. Have something that inspires them, so they can work to their strength and feel great about it. A healthy organization has a leader in it, or a leadership team in it, that makes everybody across the organization feel safe. And what I mean by that is safe from, we're going through tough economic times right now as a country, as a globe, really. And that is, making them feel safe, that taking layoffs off the table, really, and communicating transparently of what's going on within the organization. And it's building a strong level of trust that like I said, you can have that transparency of communication and build up that trust in a way that everybody across the organization feels safe. Feeling safe also means that we have a strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion too, and understanding really well on what everybody's different backgrounds are, even understanding what some people's unearned privileges are in life compared to other people, and not to feel guilty about that, but to feel a higher level of compassion so having that compassion across the organization, and knowing how our actions and how our words affect other people in the way that we communicate and work as a team. And then third, so we've got inspiring others to do what inspires them, having them feel safe when they're at work in all those different ways I said. And then finally, going home at night, and if work happens to be one of the last things that they think of before going to bed, having them feel fulfilled as their head hits the pillow at night about the work that they've done, that it's been meaningful, that they've been able to collaborate, that their opinions and voices have been heard, and they feel like they're part of something bigger. And if we can do that most days, who knows what we can achieve together.
What you have learned is really based, of course, on all those years of experience of working with your present companies. I really think it's exciting for this next chapter for you. Scary, I guess as well, right? Because you're going from something that is that because of your work many decades now. You're diving into a new pool. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had my wife's aunt who's into financial planning. I had talked to her about what I was doing, and she was like, "Oh, well, like where you're at with what you built with zero. We think about like stocks and bonds, like that organization's a bond. It's solid, it's dependable. But what you're jumping into now is sort of like this startup volatile stock.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, we only go through life once, and adventure is out there. So I'm excited to do it. And I was telling somebody that it's sort of taking my experiences and what have been some of my failures and what have been some of my successes, and try to bring that to other organizations. That's how I can be helping them. How it sort of feeds me, or how it sort of like builds me up or sort of fulfills me, is one of the things that I really liked, and I didn't touch on too much, but I went to school for journalism. So before I got into the nonprofit space, there was a few years there that I worked in journalism, and what I loved about that was coming in every day, and it was sort of like, all right, today I'm a pseudo expert in this topic because they're going to have you go write about this, or go write about forestry, or go write about butterflies, or go butterfly migration, or go write about how so-and-so is building a boat. So it's jumping around to all of these different things. So I get to live vicariously through some of these people that I talk to that are doing all these like wonderful, involved in all of these wonderful causes, with these great missions. And maybe I get a chance to be a little bit of a part of that, to help out in any way that I can. And that to me is sort of really cool. And it goes back to a little bit of my roots, and it matches up really well for me.
I think it's exciting, and I know you will do well. And I really encourage people that are in need for some coaching and or a mentor to really connect with you. Check out the website. We'll make sure that your website is also mentioned in the podcast notes, so people can check you out. Do they have to wait in contacting you until June, or
No, I'm starting to talk to people now, but
Okay.
you're on the spot there. It's mentoring others in leadership. It's helping them on how to create a great culture, because that really comes first. A lot of people want to jump ahead and just say that it's about fundraising, but it is about having a great team in place who are going to have each other's backs and make the organization stronger. But we also we're also going to be doing that too, is developing strategy and building fundraising plans and board planning too. I think I hear a lot from our colleagues that they have issues around how do we build a great and fantastic board. And I've been so lucky and fortunate to have a terrific board and a lot of these years along the way. And maybe I have a few ideas around that as well.
Hey, Jamie, I would like to bring you to the kind of the next phase of our conversation, where we go a little bit faster, where I have a couple of questions for you that I always ask with my guests. The first one is, what makes you, that you get out of bed in the morning? What drives you?
What drives me to get out of bed in the morning is the care. A couple things. The care and love that I have for my family, who depends on me, and wanting to continue to be the best role model that I can for my kids. I have 3 of them. They're all in different stages. One's out in college, one's in high school, one's ending middle school. So they're looking to dad for advice all the time, and looking at what I'm up to and what I'm going next. So that's the main driver. And then number 2 is helping patients, and then looking to this last endeavor that I just talked about, of that excitement of what can we do to make I know it sounds hokey, but what can we do to make the world a better place? And that helps me get up in the morning of what the day holds.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And that's what I've written also in the in the small blurb around this podcast. If we can make this world a little bit better, that would be great. That this podcast is a spin-off of my 100-mile walk. The next one will take place at the end of March, beginning of April, in the Seattle, Washington area. If you would be asked, I'm curious about this, because now if you're changing your career, if you would be asked to walk 100 miles in a week, so that means 15 to 20 miles per day, for which cause would you walk? Is that still, cancer, or would that be something else?
There's so many great causes out there. Wow, that's a good question. I am drawn right now to I would do that for something in the mental health space. I think of it ways that mental health has affected me personally over time. I've had depression issues. I deal with ADD, but so do millions of other people. But I also have people who have been close to me who have struggled with mental illness. I grew up with there's a friend of mine who had death by suicide a few years back. That was impactful.
Yeah.
And I see how mental health affects some of the prostate cancer patients that I have met over the years. And just hearing from others on how you look at something like Alzheimer's, that just seems terrible, to have your memories wiped away like that. What do we have but the memories of our adventures at the as we near the end of our journey. So I would say that.
Okay. Unfortunately, I've also experienced with that. My mother and my mother-in-law both had it at the end of their lives. So that's terrible, because you're losing you're losing your loved ones, because they change into another person as a result of Alzheimer's dementia. So
I'll do it. I'll do 100 miles and think of your mom and think of the people who've been impacted in my life around mental health.
And you can fly out to Seattle and walk with me while I walk to end hunger and poverty and injustice. You walk for mental health. Sounds like a plan, right? Hey, when I'm walking, that's also a time where there's a lot of thinking going on, and why are we here on Earth, purpose, and then religion, spirituality comes around the corner as well. I have a question always about that, and that's, what do you see happening among youth and religion and spirituality? And the question is because some of my fellow walkers are saying, oh, youth are very different than the previous generations. Others say, no, they're still the same. So what do you see happening around religion and spirituality and the youth in your community?
Do you mean in the context there is the next generation coming up behind us sort of less engaged or more engaged?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. And how do they look at church, for example? What do you see?
I definitely see church being less of a staple or less of a component in young people's lives. But I can say that from my own personal experience and looking at my own kids and the friends that they have, is that there is a good amount of spirituality there, but not necessarily connected to the church. And looking at spirituality as a way of love and humanity and kindness. And I think of it in two things. If we drew a circle and wrote church in one circle and wrote sort of like, care for your fellow human and love in another circle, there's a good deal of overlap there. But in some areas there's not, because we've seen, sometimes in the church, some things that happen are not so good. And I guess not to say that there's not a lot of good that happens in church, but I'm seeing, from my firsthand experience, I'm seeing that there's a lot of love and humanity and that spirituality in the youth around me. I would say much more so than my peers when I was growing up at that age, my teenagers, and people would think nothing of it to bully and taunt and harass other people. And now this generation that's growing up, there is zero tolerance for any of that, and it's pretty unified around that. And it's a much different world than when I was that age, and it's really inspiring and encouraging.
And why is that change? Why is it different in our generation, do you think?
That's a good question. I think that we each generation sort of brings us closer to harmony and understanding, and seeking out opportunities to explore or sort of get within circles and get to know people who are not like them, and be ready to embrace that rather than push it away. I don't know. You think back over, you hear these stories from early Americas of settling here and the atrocities that are done to Native Americans, and then you hear about how, well, so and so's from Ireland, or so and so's from Italy, or whatever, and there's I guess there's like so much animosity that existed there. And then you look at everything that happened through the rest of the history of America, that every generation that comes along, for the most part, sort of moves us along into sort of a better understanding of embracing that we're all people, that we're all the same underneath, and really embracing how we're all different. And so I don't know what the exact catalyst of why they are that way.
For me, that's really hopeful to hear that, because very often, people think, oh, humanity makes a lot of similar mistakes every time again. But you are pointing at, no, we are learning. So that's really hopeful, and thanks for sharing that. Jamie, music is very important to me, so I always ask a music-related question as well, and that is, if I would ask you to mention a piece of music or a song that best embodies, for a big part, who Jamie is, what you are about, which song or piece of music would that be, and why?
I love this question. You let me know if it was coming ahead of time. I know I'm probably not supposed to say that, but love music. I was even a DJ like decades ago. So
you were, wow, yeah, cool.
So I love music too. It changes so often. It's such a hard. I'm stalling here, Maurice. Even at this point, I'm stalling because there's so many good things.
This is always the question where people, go back and forth. So
you asked all these great questions so far, and this is the stumper, right? This is hard stuff. I would say, because of the endeavor that I'm about to embark on with Build a Better Nonprofit, it makes me think of when I first started dating my wife. And I got a story for all of this. When I first started dating my wife, she loved going to the roller coaster. Me, not so much. I like to find my adventures and other stuff along the lines of what you do, Maurice, of getting out and just walking and being in nature. But she was big on roller coasters, and so she took me to the roller coasters, and we rode all these roller coasters. And to bring my heart rate down and to not be so anxious, the song that I kept playing in my head, and the song that I'm going back to like right now to sort of stay in that zen as much as possible, is a song called "The Secret of Life" by James Taylor. And if you haven't heard it, it goes something like, "The secret of life is enjoying the passing of time. Any fool can do it. There's nothing to it. Just try not to try too hard, because it's just a lovely ride." And on the roller coaster, I kept repeating that in my head quietly. And in times that I feel anxious or uncertain right now on what's to come, I sort of let that try to play in my head.
For you and listeners who are joining for the first time, we made a playlist on Spotify that's called #WalkTalk Listen, and all the songs that are selected by my guests since episode 1920, I think, or so, you can listen to it. So that goes from classical to hard rock to James Taylor to name it. So I would check it out if you will. It's really, really interesting. So thanks for sharing that, Jamie. Recently, I also introduced a question from the previous guest, so to really, start connecting almost literally different people I speak with. So please have a listen.
I would say my question for the next guest would be, what do you do if you're an individual that wants to take action on something they're passionate about, but don't know the first step. I think people get stuck there. So I would love for them to share what advice they have for your listeners.
I think it's a great question. And I also said there, I did not tell her that it would be you, but I said, "Oh, I know who the next guest is." So that's the perfect person to reply to this question. So, Jamie, what is your answer there?
Thanks. I don't know if I'm the perfect person, but I love the question. I would say that when you don't know the next step to take over something that you're passionate about, it's often a sign of. I'm glad that she said that you're passionate about, because usually it's a sign of I don't want to do this or what I'm about to do, or I just don't know what that first next step is. And so it's completely natural that if you're passionate about something and don't know that first step of I think that it's helpful to remember that even if they're thinking about where they're going or what their next endeavor is or what that project is or how to get over some challenge or obstacle, even just thinking about it, like for example, Maurice, you get out and you walk all the time and get out there. Um, even just the act of you getting in that mindset of this is what I'm going to do, and just starting to, pull the jogging pants on or putting on the shoes, that starts the momentum. So I guess what I'm saying is that, like, even if you're thinking about it, you have already taken the first steps. So if that makes it easier for someone to continue the momentum forward, to know that just thinking about doing that thing that they're stuck on, they're actually really not stuck on it, because they're, thinking about it is action. Too often we get caught up into, all right, we're only doing something unless we're out there on the street, walking or running. But the thing is, I've done a couple of marathons too, but there comes a lot of mental preparation and thinking about what your needs are and what the plan is to get from here to there. So I think that it's almost a myth in some ways, because you are thinking about it. But number two, I would say, if you're still stuck there, is have the humility to talk to others who have faced similar challenges or faced similar opportunities, to get some ideas from them that might, or get some experiences from them on what might spark your own next step.
Jamie, your question for the next guest.
Will you make a commitment within the next week to be one of those everyday leaders and tell somebody, and you're either in your current circle of relationships or from your past, that they've made a difference in your life because of something that they've said or done? Because that's also a form of being an everyday leader.
Jamie, Steve Hartman of CBS, he started recently, I think it's a couple of videos and that he made, and I don't know if it's on television or only online, but he's looking at the gift. So he examines the act of a simple act of kindness and how that creates a ripple effect. And my question to you around that is, what are your thoughts about a simple act of kindness? And that's one. And then second part of the question is, if I would ask you to come up right now with a simple act of kindness on the spot, what would you do?
That's great. I think it goes back to what we were talking about before of that everyday leadership, because it has an impact on others. I said that if it wasn't for some of these different inflection points of things that people have said or done, around me and the career that I've had, who knows where I would be at. So it's important to tell others on how you feel or how it's made their life better. So, but your question is, what would I do right now to make a simple act of kindness to sort of make the world a little bit better place from the perspective of one person? I would say that what comes to mind is maybe a lot of people are saying this, but my wife comes to mind. She does so much. She's an award-winning artist, but she's also a mom, and lets me do this career, and she does so many things for this family, and doesn't get enough credit. So she's long overdue for a little, just some flowers, or just a nice show of affection. And I really appreciate it, everything that she does. She's an amazing woman. So she comes to mind. Comes to mind first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right after we are done with the podcast, you're going to order some flowers for her.
Yes, that's what we'll do. Yep. That, and yesterday I talked to the head of an organization that represents cancer patients who are under 40, usually adolescent and young adult patients. And I'm going to make a donation to that. Well,
okay.
I was really moved by how many and how deep they help young cancer patients. And it's really inspiring.
These conversations always go so fast. What I would like to ask you is do you have a last message or an invitation or a question for the listeners?
Yes, I would say it goes back to what we talked about around everyday leadership. As I said, we look at leadership as being something that's like unattainable, or something that we'll get to someday, but not today. But you can get there today, and all leadership really requires is to do something like what we just talked about around Steve Hartman, and what you bring out of the guests that you bring onto your show, Maurice, and that is telling somebody about the impact that they've made in your life. So that's a challenge that I would give your listeners out there, or even the next guest that you have come on. Will you commit sometime within the next week, whether it's in your circle of relationships that you have now, or someone in your past who has said something or done something that has been meaningful to you in a way that has made you change your perspective, or nudged you in a direction that you wanted to go in for your maybe your next adventure, or to get over something that's scary, and let them know what they said or what they did. Because oftentimes they may not know. It may have stuck with you for a long time and meant the world to you, but had you actually said it? Because if you say it, chances are it'll make their world their day a lot better. It'll be the highlight of their day, and they'll keep saying and doing those types of things for others.
Well, I would like to thank you, Jamie, for your willingness and time to talk with me today. Sharing your story, your experience, and your examples. We know each other from a leadership virtual event that we are on a regular basis part of, and that's really very enriching for me every time we talk, and it's a bigger group than only the two of us. But thank you for what you do during those moments, and also what you did in the last hour. Thank you for who you are. Good luck with your next endeavor. I'm absolutely sure it will be successful and something that will be inspiring for others. And I really hope that it will bring you what you're looking for. Before we close, any question that I should have asked you?
No worries. I just want to say back to you that you are magnificently inspiring in the groups that you just mentioned, and by doing this podcast. And thank you for bringing on all the guests that you bring on. There's something in there for everybody that they come away with feeling inspired and fulfilled about, and what they have going on in their lives. And thank you for being a leader and making the world a better place by doing that, and everything that you do in your professional and personal life.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you for bringing me on episode 100.
Hey, cool.
With over 1,100 miles walked, Maurice is yet again training to walk 100 more. So for those of you who aren't familiar, which if you're an avid listener, I'm sure you are, the 100-mile hunger walk was started in 2012 by Maurice to raise funds and awareness to fight hunger and poverty around the world. This annual event came to be because Maurice was inspired by the spirit of volunteerism behind the CWS-sponsored Crop Hunger Walks, which are a community-organized charity event that takes place in over 500 locations across the U.S. each year. So because of this, Maurice decided to set out on his own journey and put his feet where his heart was. This year's 100-mile walk will take place from Monday, March 26th, to Saturday, April 1st in Seattle, Washington. And on top of that, our fundraising campaign will run until the end of the summer. All the proceeds will go to support CWS's global programs that work to create a world where there is enough for all. So, how does the 100-mile work? Well, each year Bloom walks 100 miles through CWS and crop communities and spends his time meeting with our crop volunteer teams, with beneficiaries, with local community members, political officials, students, artists, and other like-minded individuals, like yourself, who work to support their community, end hunger, and promote a healthy and nutritious lifestyle. This year's theme is centered around the inner development goals. The idea behind these is that we must first unlock and grow our inner capacity, skills, and abilities to fully materialize humanitarian transformation. These IDGs are guiding principles that help us achieve our goals as we work with local communities here in the U.S., as well as in the 60-plus countries that we work in, to help end hunger and poverty while building healthy communities through increased nutritious lifestyles, especially for children. So what are some ways that you can get involved? Well, for those in the Seattle area, you can come out and walk with us for a mile, maybe 2, or you can see how long you last. But don't worry, you can always come out and just say hi, meet with Maurice, have a chat, and then send him on his way. So on top of that, another easy way to get involved is to make a donation. Participants are also able to start their own fundraising page to continue their efforts by reaching out to their own communities to get involved as well. So to make a donation or start your own fundraising page, click the link.
Well, of course, you're wondering where. Go to the podcast notes and click in the links.
In other exciting news, this year, Maurice has been chosen to be an ambassador for Knox Gear. Knox Gear is a brand company who makes safety and visibility gear for people and their pets who love to walk, run, play sports, or anyone who lives an active or outdoor lifestyle.
And yes, you're right. Also, this link can be found in the podcast notes.
When the link is used to make any Knox Gear purchase, 10% of the total purchase will be donated back to support CWS hunger and nutrition programs. So for anybody interested in joining us, getting more involved, or simply just wanting to stay connected, you can send us an email at innovationhub@cwsglobal.org.
You're right. You can find the link again in the podcast notes.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, if you haven't already, become a WalkTalk Listen subscriber. So let's get walking together. And don't forget to #go the extra 100 mile.
Extra 100 mile,
Thank you for listening to Walk, Talk, Listen. Please check us out on 100mile.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.